Our guest this week on Hold My Cutter is a guy who once used a railroad tie to drag a baseball field. He has a lifetime pass, rider's pass on Greyhound bus, and he's also a lifetime enthusiast of town talk bread wrappers. You guessed it, the Carrick native, the legend himself, John the Rock Wainer is our guest. There's your stogie, Johnny.
Thank you, Brownie.
Have a seat, and Michael and I look forward to talking to John Wainer coming up next on Hold My Cutter.
Oh, Tommy!
Tommy! Oh,
This episode of Hold My Cutter coming your way from Burned by Rocky Patel, just a few blocks from PNC Park on the North Shore. And we are enjoying the Rocky, we emphasize R-O-C-K because John Wainer is our guest on this episode. The Rocky Patel 55. Michael McKenry calls it the McKenry, the former Pirates catcher here with us for number 55. Natural buttery sweetness, notes of earthiness and peppery, medium-bodied cigar, ending notes of espresso. It's really good. Leonard Lee, our producer. Another episode of Hold My Cutter. John the Rock Wainer here with us. And John, we've talked about your incredible career growing up in Carrick, Pittsburgh guy, how you got here, going to Indiana, your major league debut, which just had to be incredible at the River Stadium, all your buddies on hand. And you played that first week. Jim Leyland walked in the clubhouse in Cincinnati. It had an episode where the team charter had to, I guess, make an emergency landing in Columbus before reaching Cincinnati.
Which is right next to Cincinnati.
Yeah, he had heart issues.
Man.
big baby.
You told us that he walked up to you at one point and said, "What?
Did you hear that?
Wainer."
He goes, "Big baby."
Leland will hear that. The Hall of Famer will hear that. No question about that.
Take that.
But he made reference to the fact that he almost had a heart attack when he found out that you were coming to the big leagues. But you had that great relationship over the years with Leland. Wainer and Leland had that great relationship. He often talks about some of his favorite players of his now Hall of Fame career, and without fail, he'll talk about Wainer. But he puts you, first of all, as a double switch in your major league debut at River Stadium. The first at bat is a ground out. You get your first big league hit. When you got your first hit, which was a line shot into left field, as we understand it, right?
Or a grounder short.
Or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What did you do? Is the baseball still around somewhere?
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Where is it?
Yeah, it's in the basement.
Okay, it's in the basement.
It's in the basement.
Oh, you got it. It's in the basement.
In the man room or just
It's
in the basement?
Yeah, I got a shelf. It's on a shelf.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But you had all these people on hand. You talk about how nervous you were in your debut. How much of a relief is it when you get that? And you did it early. Like, you don't go for an 0 for 6, 7, 10 streak. You get that out of the way. Is that a huge relief?
Big time, yeah. It was nice, for one, because I started that game, and I want to say it was my first at-bat of that game. I remember Bobby Bonilla coming up to me before that game as we were talking about Tom Browning. And Browning threw a perfect game, I believe, the year before.
Huh.
And so you're thinking, oh, my gosh, Tom Browning, you know? And he's like, you won't believe it. You won't even believe it. Like, this guy got nothing. And he did. I mean, he threw like 89 miles an hour. It's like, what is this? You know, like change-ups and this and that. I mean, he was just throwing like softballs up there. And so it helps because you don't feel like you got to gear up or do anything extra. Because when you think in the minor leagues, when you think of going to the big leagues, you think that they are so much better. You think that they are so much more talented. You think that the fastball's harder, the breaking ball's sharper, and in some cases it is. But generally, it's the same stuff you saw in the minor leagues. They just have better command.
When did you find out that you were actually in the starting lineup, though? Because you were a double switch the first time, your debut, but when did you find out you're actually starting?
I believe when I walked into the clubhouse that day. I don't think I've ever been told. I think maybe one time I was told by Jim Leyland that get your rest, you're probably starting tomorrow.
Did you like that, though? Did you like to know?
No, it didn't matter. I didn't get my rest the night before. I faced out lighter in New York either. I had very little rest, actually. like maybe like 3 hours.
Why would Leyland tell you that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
He told you once.
That was when I was at the Marlins in
didn't have-
'98.
oh,
like,
my
who
gosh.
cares? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I think that was the only time.
Now you
How'd you
can't
do?
sleep because you know you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
That's
a lot.
another whole story too, because like Leyland was like, "Oh, you can't feel his position," you know. And he's telling me, "We're gonna bunt on him. We're gonna bunt on him. Just bunt him. He can't feel his position. Bunt on him." So first at bat, naturally, I try to bunt, and his cutter jammed me, and I hit a one hopper back at him. So I'm like in the dugout, like in front of Leyland. Yeah, bunt on him.
Leyland doesn't. What's he talking about? Leyland? But yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up going 1 for 3 that day. I remember that, but it was a 12:30 game at Shea, and I think I got in at 4.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a bad
wow.
thing.
Wow.
Bad thing.
Jeez.
So hit the ball in the middle.
But I still
Yeah.
I 1 for 3.
Yeah, it's a
my
good day.
gosh.
Yeah, make a career out of that.
Yeah. But I don't ever remember in my career, other than that day, being told, "Hey, you're going." Oh no, there was a second day, and that's another story. Oh my gosh, this show can go on forever. Lloyd McClendon in 2001 told me like 4 days in advance that I was facing Shane Reynolds
That's
against
just evil.
Houston.
Man.
4 days.
Man.
Well, and the reason being, I think he was, and I know this is, well, I didn't confirm this with Lloyd, but I knew at the time just by reading the writing on the wall, that was my last year. And he told me like 2 or 3 or 4 days earlier, you're starting Friday against Shane Reynolds. So I called all my family and friends and said, hey, my last game is going to be Friday against the Astros if you want to come. Because I knew then that was my last game. Because I mean,
Well, then that
Lloyd,
wasn't evil.
Lloyd
that
was
nice.
yeah.
That
Lloyd
was
gave
really
me
cool.
a heads up, and without saying it, and I knew that was going to be my last game. But I honestly think in my career, I've been told twice that I was starting, beforehand, at least the day before.
Wow.
How about the streak that you went on as a rookie, by the way? In fact, against Charlie Leibrandt, that first week, the call-up, July 23rd against Atlanta, again, through River Stadium. You go 5 for 5. 5 for 5.
You had a 5 for 5 game?
5 for 5. The first Pirate rookie to go 5 for 5 since Richie Zisk in
I
1973.
need a dap for that. Hey, come on.
It was
5 for 5?
So my first start was against Browning. I think my second start was on Sunday Night Baseball, and Randy Tomlin threw a shutout. And that was cool, too, because now I'm thinking, now if I screw up, everybody's going to see it. It's Sunday Night Baseball.
National TV.
And I had, the craziest defensive game ever. And then so the next day, I think it was my third start, was against the Braves and Charlie Leibrandt. And if you ask Jim Leyland about that 5-hit game, because he remembers it, and he'll tell you, you line them up, they don't reach the warning track. I can't do my Leyland right now. I'm really struggling with it. But I had a little flare off the end of the bat up the middle. I had a little swinging bunt to third. I had a one hopper. Lemke kind of got handcuffed to second. I had a little blooper down the right field line. And then I
beautiful
hit
day.
One hit. I literally didn't hit a single. The only ball I hit hard was the one hopper to Lemke, and he couldn't get out of his glove. And so and so another story with that is that it was my 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th hit, because I remember they put on the scoreboard Paul Wainer, 3,000 hits, and Lloyd Wehner, whatever, all that, and then John Wainer 8.
So you're right behind him.
Oh, well, the great story about that is, as soon as that went up on the board, I found out Leyland got on the phone with the press box and said, "Get that shit down off of there." He was so mad. He called Jimmy T and started yelling. He was so
Get
mad.
it down.
So I know that
my
was my
gosh.
8th hit because of that thing on the board.
That's
that
hilarious.
Is absolutely unbelievable. Oh my gosh.
I love that he got on the
That
phone
is
and
so
called
great.
up there.
Get that off there. So you get 6 straight hits. You go 8 for 15 after your first week in the big leagues. Your first home run comes in a couple years later.
6 years
But anyway,
later.
He said a couple years later.
It's April the 4th. It's
That's
at
good.
Florida, but you were just talking about Al Leiter. Your first home run is
At Florida.
your
That's a
pinch
big
hit
park, too.
for Francisco Cordova, the Pirates pitcher, against Al Leiter.
Yeah, and so don't think that I didn't know that I hadn't hit a home run in the big leagues, because I had some power. I mean, I hit for some power in the minor leagues, and so I pinch hit. I don't know. What was the date?
That was,
it was one of
April 4th, early
so
1996.
It was it might have been opening day or
I think it was.
yeah. And so when I pinched hit, and I knew Leiter threw cutters, and so he came in with a cutter, and it was a line drive that just barely got out. I didn't think it was going to go, and we were down like 3 or 4-0. I want to say 4-0. And so it was probably the most unprofessional thing I've ever done as a baseball player.
What was that?
I came back in the dugout so happy. It was like the 8th inning. It was like, we're down 4-1. Woo! And I'm like, screw
You finally got it. Yeah.
I knew the guys were going to give me crap and stuff like that. None of them, I think, knew that I had never hit a home run. And I'm like acting like an idiot, and they're looking at me like I'm a freaking fool.
Oh, my gosh.
That means something.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think it was my 376th at bat, something like that. And so the greatest thing about that, not the greatest thing, but one of the weird things about that is, so I pinched hit a home run. And I don't know if I played for another week or two, because we went back home, like the full first homestand, they would show the team leaders on the scoreboard like pregame. And I was leading the team in like OPS and average, like slugging percentage. I was 1 for 1 like 2 weeks into the season with a homer.
You look like a legend.
Get that off the scoreboard.
Yeah, yeah, Leland's calling up.
Like the whole homestand. If you'd look it up, I guarantee you I didn't get another at bat for 2 weeks after that.
But you're you're a team leader. That's all that matters. That's great.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you got to tell the story, speaking of home runs, because it's my favorite story. I know I've talked to you. I don't know if I've told you about it, Michael.
It's one of my favorites.
As a play-by-play guy, you get asked the questions about what's your favorite moment in sports. What's your favorite call? And so my favorite call is John Wehner's last home run in the major leagues. And
I didn't know it was his last homer in the majors.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the last home run ever hit in the history of Three Rivers
I knew that
Stadium.
part. Wow.
But I also didn't really know the whole backstory behind the journey, which he had basically. Well, you tell the story. You're here.
Well, if we have 5 minutes, it's going to take, because I'm going to even go back further than that. I'm going to go back
please.
to.
I've heard parts of the story. It's one of my favorites I've ever heard.
I'm going to go back to '99. Okay, because after I was with the Marlins '97, we won a World Series with Jim Leyland and Dave Dombrowski, brought me back for '98, and I got released. And after '98, I was out of baseball. So I had no offers. And I'm calling everyone I know. Called Terry Collins, called Ray Miller, called Leyland, called Cam Bonifay, called everybody I know trying to get a job in baseball. And I got nothing about. I was supposed to go to Colorado with Jim Leyland. He was like asking me about it, and he couldn't get things to work out. So I was done playing. I was basically, done, retired, as some would say. But I felt like I was, at that time, I was only 31, that I had more left in me. So I stayed in shape, but just did lessons. Early June of '99, again, no spring training, no baseball, playing slow pitch softball with my brothers right here, Maury Park in Pleasant Hills, among other places. And it was cool because all 3 of my brothers were in town and we're playing softball, slow pitch. Paul Tennell, the Pirates scouting director at the time, gives me a call. It's like June 4th or 5th, and says, do you want to come back and play? I'm like, no, I'm done. And he goes, we need somebody to go to Double-A. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And they offered me a lot of money. It's probably one of the best minor league contracts I got as far as monthly.
So now he's negotiating.
And so now he's
playing hardball now.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the 12.5 I said I signed for in '88, I think he offered me $12,000 a month to play in Double-A.
How about that?
Wow.
And I was doing lessons. I wasn't making much. I wasn't making that, and so I agreed to it. And so it took me a couple of days to get to Altoona. And I go.
I want to interrupt you. Why did they do that at that time?
They had some injuries and they were just short.
Looking for depth.
They were looking for depth. So I figured, okay, I'll get on. Literally hit a slow pitch softball the night before. When I go to Altoona, And they throw me in the lineup, and I was only there for 5 or 6 days. I think I had 10 or 11, maybe 12, I don't know, 10 or 11 at bats, a couple of hits. And now they're telling me I got to go to Nashville to AAA. And I'm kind of pissed because I'm like, I'm playing slow pitch softball. Now they're going to make me go to Nashville AAA, and I know who's there, and I'm not going to play. I didn't come here to not play.
Huh.
I signed to play.
Yeah.
And so I go to Nashville, and I'm sitting there. Trent Jewett, again, was the manager, and good friends of mine there, Dale Swaim, everybody else. Kevin Pulkovich was the shortstop.
Jeez.
Well, Pulkovich strains a calf. So Swaim was the backup shortstop. And like 4 or 5 days in, I think I had maybe 1 or 2 at-bats. And the one at-bat was in Arizona, I think Tucson.
Round on the left side of the infield.
Nope, better than that. This is the most amazing thing about my career. And my gosh, am I stinking feeling like a selfish fool right now?
Yeah, but this is
Saying
We're
that.
asking the
Okay,
questions.
all right.
We're
We're the one
loving
asking
this.
you.
All right. The Nashville Sounds have won 12 straight games. So I'm up there 2 or 3 games, and I'm not playing yet. So in the 9th inning of game number 13, Trent tells me to go. I have to go up and pinch hit. And I like I said, I have 12 at-bats in Double-A, maybe 1 in Triple-A. I go to pinch hit in the 9th inning, down 5-2. I hit a 3-run homer
Ha! It's because
to tie it.
you know what it was? It was softball. It was your
Yeah,
launch
I
angle
know.
changed.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's right. Launch angle changed. Good call.
So we time it, we tie it, and then we win in 12 to win 13 straight. Well, the next
13
day,
straight.
Emil Brown did something weird, so I started in right field. That game, I think Pulkovich and Swaim got hurt. Okay, and so now I have to play short. It's the one position I haven't played. I played a lot of center, left, right, a lot of first, second, third, caught a few times, but never played short. So I went from this light-hitting utility guy to now I'm playing short every day in AAA for Trent Jewett, Nashville. So we go up to Seattle or Tacoma. I hit a homer in the first game, hit a homer in the second game, hit a homer in the third game. Now we're at the end of June going into July. We go back to Nashville. I hit a homer in the next game. We have a double header on July 4th. So my dates are obvious. You could figure out the dates. The first game of the doubleheader, I hit a home run. The second game of the doubleheader, I hit a home run. All playing shortstop.
God.
I went from a light-hitting third baseman to
To
a
a
power-hitting
power
shortstop.
My gosh.
Jeez Louise.
I hit a home run in 6 straight games.
That is unbelievable.
Now, this is
It's a
probably
launch angle, Brownie. I'm telling you.
July 5th, I get called up to the big leagues. Well, no, actually, July 4th, I get called up to the big leagues because we just played. It was 100 degrees on that guitar clock in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
After that
Beer
game, I'm
steak.
in there. We're just in there hanging out, whatever. I just hit 2 more home runs to have 6 straight games. I'm literally cramping I can't, your hamstrings cramp, you straighten your leg, the quads are cramped. I'm laying on the ground, like just stiff, like laying there.
Been there.
And like Swamer and Lake give me a beer. I'm just sitting there. I'm like,
Beer for the cramps.
and I'm like dying. And so literally everybody leaves the clubhouse except Sandy Crum.
Trainer.
Trent's gone. Sandy Crum's a trainer. Sandy Crum says, "Hey, you got a phone call." I'm like, "Oh," you go, "All right." So I get up there. This is before I had a cell phone. Before anybody had a cell phone, I guess in '99. So I go back and Cam Bonifay's on the phone. He goes, "Rock." I'm like, "Yeah." And this is literally how he said it. "We got to call you up."
The general manager.
We gotta call you up.
Like disappointed. We
July
got to call
5th,
you up. I'm
like
sorry.
June 8th, I was playing slow pitch softball or whatever
July
the date
5th,
was.
we
July
gotta call
5th,
you
we
up.
gotta call you up.
Unbelievable.
So now, this is obviously a long answer to your question. So now I'm back in the big leagues, and then I'm back to my old self, playing off the bench or whatever. But that got me another year in 2000. So now I go and spent the whole year in AAA in 2000. Now this is the last year of Three River
Now,
Stadium.
Gene Lamont is the manager
Yeah.
in '99, by the way, the Pirates manager.
Mhm. So I start off in 2000. Didn't go to big league camp. Only minor league camp. They didn't invite me to big league
You
camp.
got
I
called
go
up
to
the year
minor league
before.
camp.
Didn't get the big league camp the next year.
Yeah, I didn't get the big league camp. So I start minor league camp. They tell me they don't have a spot for me. I had a typical bad spring training, even in minor league camp. And Trent Jewett, again, the manager, says, "We got no spot for you, so we're either going to release you or you start on the Phantom DL." So I'm like, all right, I'll do the Phantom DL thing, Spent the entire year in Nashville. And I had a decent year. I actually had some homers that year, not consecutively, but I think I had the highest I ever had. I think I had 16 or so. And the end of August, the season's winding down. They told the guys who were going to get called up who was getting called up. So I'm like, well, this is my first year not in the big leagues since '91, so I'm done. I'm retired. I'm literally finished. I spent the whole year in AAA. I'm done. The last week of August, up here in Pittsburgh, Aramis Ramirez separates his shoulder. His backup, Mike Benjamin, has a sore back, and Keith Osick did something to his shoulder, all in the last week of August. So on September 1st, I get a call in Nashville saying, we got to call you up.
We got to call you up again.
We got to call
We
you
got to
up.
call you up.
So not only am I getting called up, we're on the West Coast. I walked into the clubhouse September 1st, or what was 1st or 2nd, in San Diego, and I was friends with all those guys. They're all, hey, yeah, and like they weren't a very good team, and I just said something stupid like, I'm going to right this ship. Okay, I'm going to right this ship.
I'm here to right the
rock.
ship.
I'm here to rock this.
I'm in the lineup that day. I go 3 for 5 with a couple RBIs. We swept the West Coast.
So you right the ship.
I'm in the big leagues now. I'm playing every day in the big leagues again. I'm like, what the hell?
Rock rights the ship.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it got normal, like the Benjamin, I didn't play. I got 50 at bats in that month of September, which was a lot for me. But I played a lot, which led up to the last game of Three Rivers.
But he hits 300, by the way, just to point that out. So,
In that month.
In that month, yeah.
Wow.
But so obviously, because of all that stuff that happened in '99 and 2000, I get an opportunity to play the last game at Three Rivers Stadium, which for me obviously is a thrill. So there was a third time that I was told beforehand that I was starting, because Gene Lamont, how did I forget this, told me several days before, you're starting that last game. And
That had to mean the
I
world.
couldn't have been more thrilled.
Yeah.
And I have never, ever in my life felt more comfortable. To me, like I was a defensive guy. I took so much pride in my defense. And Jim Leyland kept me around because he trusted me wherever he threw me to catch the ball. In that game, I've never felt less confident on defense than I did. All I thought about for 3 days is I just can't screw up on defense. I don't care what happens
Isn't
on
that
offense.
weird? I wonder why you felt that way.
The second batter of that game, a one-hopper right at the bag, the easiest play ever. It kind of took me away from a play at second. I threw a change-up to first base. Kevin Young in the dirt, error. It was my first error at third base since 1992.
John Wainer had the National League record for consecutive. Think about that. The record for errorless games at third base.
Wow.
And I knew I hadn't made an error since 92, but I didn't know how many games, and I didn't know it was a record or anything like that. All I thought about for 3 days was you can't screw up on defense.
Which is the worst thing you could do.
In the second batter, like the third pitch of the game, I threw the ball away at first base. But offensively, I've never felt more calm and cool. And I thought, this is the greatest ever. I was like, oh my gosh, who's pitching? It was John Lieber, a former teammate. And I've never felt more locked in at the plate.
Wow.
I've never felt worse on defense and never felt that locked in on offense. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Well, so he'll pick up the story because having known John, because he went up
for a while now.
for a while.
Yeah.
I never do this. Never. I don't have any memorabilia. I don't keep anything over the years. I just don't. I have a handful of. But I decided that day I'm going to get one of Steve Blass's. Steve would have a big flip scorecard with the lineup he put down and the diagram of the field. And I thought, I'm going to go into the clubhouse. I'm just going to have each player sign his position. I don't know why. So I walk in now. Of course, I don't know who's playing. I have to look on the lineup card. And I look and I see Wehner's in the starting lineup. I thought, this is how cool. I love Gene Lamont for that reason.
Yeah,
What a touch of class to understand the whole magnitude of this. Pirates and Cubs, meaningless game, but last game ever, Three River Stadium. What a nice touch that is to have John. So I go around to each position, and I sit there at John's locker, and I hate we signed this, and understated, humble, it's really cool, I'm really fired up. These guys are talking. Like, maybe I should hit a home run. Kind of chuckles about that.
Yeah.
And we share a laugh.
So it was kind of a running joke. in the locker room.
How cool. If I'm playing, but they did want me to hit a home run here last game 3 was. So I go upstairs and I'm having now dinner in the press room with Bob Walk, who's of course former teammate, known John just as longer, and I tell him the story, and we're talking about how cool is it that Wehner's playing.
Yeah.
Now, Bob is doing the game on radio with Lanny Terry, which is on the 3rd level at Three Rivers Stadium. But it just is one flight of steps behind home plate in the press box area to get up to the TV booths. I'm doing TV that night with Steve Blass, and they brought Nellie King in, the former Pirate pitcher and longtime broadcaster, so that Nellie and Steve would just, throughout the game, they'd spin tales about Three Rivers Stadium. It's perfect that those guys would talk about the great years of Three Rivers Stadium. And now, John, they're talking, 60,000 people just rocking the place, just so emotional.
Yeah.
And for me, it's emotional because that's where I grew up as a fan. And now, John comes to the plate, and we have talked about this on a podcast. I've asked you guys about what it's like to be in the zone, and you guys have talked about how things slow down in slow motion. For me, when the ball hits the bat, I can remember all of a sudden silence in my ear. I don't hear any crowd. I don't hear Nellie or Steve talking. I just am watching what I believe is an incredible. I think, is this ball going to leave the ballpark? and it's so now, John. Now you hit the ball. What's it like?
What at bat is this?
Like my 3rd at bat.
Okay.
I know I had my first at bat. I had a base hit. My second at bat, Lieber threw me a breaking ball, like down and away. That he was working me away all day. I had a base hit, I think, up the middle. In my second at bat, I don't remember what pitch, but he threw me a breaking ball down and away that I smothered. I got to it a little bit off the end of the bat, and they caught it at the wall. And I remember
You're feeling sexy, like you said.
I mean, Ed Rapolano was at the umpire at third base, and he looked at me, and I was like, we were chatting all day because it was a cool thing, and I put my fingers up like this close, because I thought I might have, but I didn't get enough of it, and they caught it at the wall. And so the 3rd at bat, I'm thinking, he's been working me away. First pitch was down and away, second pitch was away, so it was 2-0, and I'm like, it's 2-0 or 2-1. I don't remember the exact count. I said, he's coming in here. I
think he was going to take his chance?
I knew he was coming in. I probably saw 8 or 10 pitches, and everything was away. And I'm like, this pitch, he's coming in. And he come in with a fastball, and it was just like the most effortless swing I've ever had. I caught it pure. I wish I would have hit it higher. It was more of a line drive, but it was like it was definitely the hardest ball I've ever hit in the major leagues. By far. And all I kept thinking about is after I made contact, it was, I've never pimped a home run. I don't know how people can stop after they take a swing and hit a home run. But as soon as I hit that, my first reaction was slow down. I'm like just thinking slow down. Like the year before when I was in Nashville in AAA hitting a couple homers, I used to like race around the bases. It was a contest. I would yell at Laker. I'm like, I bet I can get around faster than you. I got all the guys sprinting around the bases. And so now I hit a home run at Three Rivers Stadium last game, and all I keep thinking going to first, I see Tommy Sant, who was the first base coach, corner of my eye, and I just see his face, and I'm like, just slow down. Just slow down. Me and him just kind of look and share a stare, and I'm like, just slow down. All I kept thinking about, I hear the crowd, but it's so surreal, and I'm just like, just slow down. I couldn't slow down. I'm just like, please slow down.
You just couldn't do it.
And now I come around third. Who's there? It's Trent Jewett. Now he's the big league third base coach who I played with. I'm great friends with, and now he's the big league coach at third, and I just see him, and like now a tear's coming out of my eye. I've never cried in sport, never. I've never cried for losses, wins. I've never cried because of failure or success. And now I see him. And so I'm around third, and I shake Trent's hand, and then I come around, and I haven't even recognized the fans yet, but I see my teammates are all out of the club, all out of the dugout. They're all like between home plate and the dugout, and it's just like, holy crap, and I'm like, and it's just like, the whole surreal moment, and it wasn't anything about anything other than the reaction I got from my teammates, my coaches, and then I recognized the fans, and I'm just like going nuts. I don't know what to do. Everybody's high fiving, and I go and I got a cup of water, and I normally just sit down, and I hear the crowd, and I'm like, holy crap! It's like my only curtain call ever. Now I'm like, I don't know, and I just throw my hands in the air. I don't know what to do, and so then. And the next thing I remember, I'm back out at third base, and the crowd's going crazy again. I look at Ed Rapuano, and he has his arms crossed, and he's just smiling with his head, and now tears are just coming. I mean, it's just like
unbelievable.
It was the most surreal thing ever. I mean, it was just, I hate to sit there and say it was meant to be, but the only thing more meant to be than that was me going up to the plate with second and third, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth inning, and me getting a hit instead of grounding out the third.
Which would have won the game.
Yeah, it would have been. I came up, it was 11-10 or 11-9, well, 10-9, 11-10.
Here is a chance to win the game
and like, I'm 3 for 4 now with a homer, and I'm like,
yeah, you're feeling good.
And then they changed the pitchers, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. McClendon's telling me who's coming in and what he does. I'm like, who cares? I was like, this is the only time I was, it's my day. That's a walk-off hit. Grounder to third.
Then baseball comes back, right? Wow.
And one of the most, every time I talk about it, the thing that comes to my head, somebody took a snapshot. And I know David Arrigo, who's great, best ever
Former
photographer. Yeah. And he got a picture of the swing of the homer. And I don't know who got this picture. And I never asked, and I don't know. But like my career in a nutshell was that the capture of the extension on the home run ball and the dejection on my face walking back to the dugout after I made the last hour at Three Rivers Stadium with the Cubs team celebrating in the background. Like those two images to me are like my career in a nutshell. Wow. It was like, I had so many ups, so many great ups, and so fortunate and grateful. And I had so many downs. And like, to me, I don't have them side by side, but I should. Those two. I don't know if I have either of the pictures hung in my house, but they should be, because it basically
we gotta make that happen.
Yeah, it encapsulates my career in a nutshell. But it was just like the most. And then I'll add one last thing, because all the rigmarole and everything going on, like our guys are in, and by the time I get into the club, I'm like the last one down the tunnel to the clubhouse, and who walks by me is Willie Stargell.
Wow!
And the last time I saw him, last time many saw him, because he obviously passed.
My God!
Was it opening day?
Yeah.
And then he walks by me and he says, "I hit the first one. You hit the last one." And like,
now,
to
how
me,
about that?
Yeah.
Now that
he passes Willie Stargell. Willie says, "I hit the first one as a Pirate at Three Rivers. You hit the last one."
How cool was that for you in that moment? Did it just put you in awe? Like just
100%. I mean, I saw Willie Stargell at Three Rivers Stadium as a fan in those seats. In fact, I was at the celebration where you were probably there, his last game where he went around in the convertible. I mean, I saw so many great moments of Willie Stargell at Three Rivers Stadium. And like, he was the guy for me growing up. And I loved all those guys, especially from the 79 team. But like, when he walked by me, knowing he was sick, but like just giving me like a nod of affirmation, like I hit the first one.
Like you did something big. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Do you remember at all your last at bat?
Oh, yeah.
2001?
Absolutely.
When was it? Where?
So Lloyd McClendon.
So 2001's first year at PNC.
Yeah, first year at PNC. And so I scuffled, didn't play a whole lot, but I love Lloyd, and I appreciate Lloyd for, he stuck his neck out for me to make that team out of spring training. So that was another year I got, because of 2000 and the last home run. And Lloyd went to bat for me and put me on that team. And I scuffled, and I didn't play a whole lot. And he told me a few days before that, hey, you're going to start Friday against the Astros, Shane Reynolds. I like the matchup, or I like the numbers or something. I'm like, Shane Reynolds? Like, oh, you guys are like the nasty sinker, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, Shane Reynolds. And so,
You told a bunch of people.
so
to
I
be
called
there.
everybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that was like one of the first years they had walk-up music. And I was a big Genesis fan. And I remember driving to the ballpark that day thinking, I never had walk-up music. And I was going to call Jimmy T and say, there's a song, Genesis, I can't believe it's true. Are you really doing the things you do? I can't believe it's true. Like,
That was your walk-up.
I was going to call him and say, play
you didn't
this,
do it.
because I know I'm getting released right now.
Oh
Yeah.
man! And you didn't do it. You
I
didn't call him.
No, I didn't. My other walk-up song would have been "I Missed Again" by Genesis. Oh, I missed again. I think I missed again. That was the only two
So once
songs
again,
I ever thought of.
you had the surreal thing. Yeah.
But
Wow.
anyhow, yeah, I started. I don't remember. It was my last at bat, and because it was Shane Reynolds, sinker baller. He threw me a sinker down and away, rolled over to short, so I'm out of the box. And I don't know, I never saw the replay, and I'm assuming the shortstop dogged it because I didn't run as good in 2001 as I did in 91, but I beat it out. It was a grounder to short. I don't think he even had to go to his backhand. It was a tapper to short, and I beat it out. And the only thing, and so I remember that vividly, but oddly enough, the last out was made. I started at first base that night. And then McClendon took me out of the game for defense. My entire life, I've
Jeez.
never been taken out of the
It's been
game
the
for
opposite.
defense.
You've always gone in for defense.
Yes. So we were leading. Kevin Young came out for defense. I was starting at first, which I hated, but I didn't like playing first. But like it was odd to have a start at first. But yeah, KY came in for defense. And I'm like thinking, that's the weirdest damn thing ever. So then after the game, I know I'm done. Nobody else knows I'm done. I'm sure some people might see the writing on the wall, but I think it was Adam Heisdu was coming off the DL. And so I'm like, told my friends and family, wait, we'll go out and celebrate. And I got showered real quick, and I'm sitting in my locker, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And I'm like, well, screw this. I'm leaving. So I start walking out, and then finally Donnelly comes up and says, hey, Mac wants to talk to you.
Almost escaped.
You were trying to do them a favor. They're making you
Yeah.
late. Oh
like,
man.
wait, like, let's go. And so I always kidded Dave. I was always kidding Dave Littlefield about it because, like, he was just brought on as a GM. I'm like, yeah, his first order of business was to release me.
The previous GM had called him and said, got to call you up.
Got to call you up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
How about then? How many years later did you get the call from the Pirates about broadcasting?
Oh gosh,
This is gonna be
I
your
even
19th
forgot
year
about this.
coming up,
Okay,
isn't it?
so
So 01, what'd you do in 02? So that was your last.
Dale Swaim was my best friend in baseball, was managing AA. So he talked me into coming down as a player coach. So I was thinking about getting in as a player coach. So I took a few days off, and then I went to Altoona to coach. Well, everybody down there got hurt. So now I'm playing shortstop in AA, but now I can't hit the
Back
ball.
Here we go
Every
again.
time he tries to walk away, they pull him back
Well,
in.
now I can't hit the ball in the infield. I'm done. 2-0 fastball, 88 grounders. I couldn't get the bat head out, so I was done. The last week, I think I pitched 3 times because our bullpen was shot. I got a loss as a pitcher. I pitched I had to come in like in the 9th. I got through the 9th. I think I got the loss in the 10th. But I was the pitcher of record.
Oh, wow.
Arms falling apart. So I did that. 2002, I took the year off. Swaymer was still in Altoona managing, so I started coaching in Altoona in 03. Went back in 04 with Tony Beasley, and I was going to stay. I wanted
What
to
a great
manage.
human he is.
Yes,
Oh, man.
one of the best ever.
Jeez.
And so I wanted to manage, and I begged Brian Graham, who was our minor league director at the time, because Beasley moved on, and I think Beasley got called up to coach here at Pittsburgh, and so I begged him to be the manager in Altoona, and he's like, "No, you have to start in rookie ball or A ball." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going that far from my family. If I'm going to manage, it's going to be here, 2 hours away from home." So he wouldn't do it. Now in the off season, I'm reading that they're looking for another announcer because Blast Steve Blass is only going to do home games. And I'm like, shoot, I wish I'd have heard about that.
Yeah.
And so I called Patty Patis, who was the director, vice president, whatever it was, of communications. And she goes, no, we're done interviewing. We're not going to interview anymore. And I'm like, it stinks. So the next day, I go to Giant Eagle to go shopping, and I bump into Tommy Walk, who worked in the clubhouse, Bob Walk's son, Tommy. And I'm like, man, Tommy, what's up? Hey, how you doing, man? I said, I wish I'd have known about this opening. I would have definitely been interested. He goes, my dad said you'd never get out of coaching. And so Tommy goes home, tells his dad, Bob, who tells our boss, Mark Garda, that I'm interested. And so Mark Garda brings me in to get auditioned, and then I got the job.
They had to call you up again.
Yeah, that's right.
They had to call you up.
I got a horseshoe up my butt, man. I got so many things. It's so crazy.
Can you, 19 years now can you believe that? As a
19
broadcaster?
years? Wow. Does it feel that long?
No, it doesn't. But I literally talked about this with somebody last night. Somebody was talking and asking me how long. I mean, I signed with the Pirates in 1988. It's 2024. I mean, I'm pushing 35 years.
Man,
wow.
With this team that I used to literally get on a bus by myself, get dropped off at the Post-Gazette / press building, walk across the bridge, come in, get $1. Sometimes there were bread wrappers, Town Talk bread. You get 8 wrappers, you get in for free. I'd come in with my wrappers and come in here, and,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You can't write that story.
It's amazing. It really is amazing.
It is unbelievable.
I've been so blessed and lucky. And that's why you say humble. I mean, how can you not be humble? I'm the luckiest man ever. I mean, it's so freaking incredible.
What's the? A lot of people were surprised, kind of like Bob actually, when Bob Walk got the call from Mark Driscoll about broadcasting after he had retired. Last thing in the world, he thought, and those of us that knew Bob and maybe to a degree knew John Wainer wouldn't have thought that you two guys would end up in the broadcast booth. Lo and behold, and I'm not saying this because you're here. I'd say it to other people that I think that you and Bob are two of the best color broadcasters by far, and I don't think it's close because I listen to all of them, and without disrespecting anybody else, but you guys are incredible what you bring to the broadcast booth. So. Is it something that you've worked at, thought about over the years? What is it?
Oh, I've definitely worked at it. And it's funny because obviously, it's incredible being, it's a joke, I guess. Like the only thing I think more far-fetched than coming out of Carrick and being a Major League Baseball player is to come out of Carrick and be a Major League broadcaster. I mean, I was still circling verbs as a senior in high school and putting underlines around the nouns and and if you go and look at there was an interview I think CBS did 91 my rookie year. And if you sort of heard what I was saying in that, just trying to help a team out in that, to think that I could be a Major League broadcaster, it was something.
And great at it. I don't care.
Well, here's the thing.
I think you're great at it.
Yeah, it doesn't work outside of Pittsburgh. I think it only works here just because of my roots and everything else like that. And I obviously wasn't schooled for it. But what I will say is I know the game. I'm very confident in my knowledge of the game. I mean, I don't think I could talk hitting like you could talk hitting. I can't talk pitching like Bob or Matt Caps can talk about pitching. But I think I can talk about the game. I mean, I'm not an expert on hitting. I'm not, but I do feel like I can sit there and I can watch a game, see the game, talk about what I'm watching, and not only explain it like I know it, but explain it like fans can understand it. And I think that's the thing I probably my greatest compliment from fans is that. I explain it in a way that they can understand it and learn from it. And I think the more fans can learn about the game, the more interest they're going to have, the more understanding, and hopefully the more kids will play it.
Amen.
Do you still love doing it?
Oh, I love it. It's the greatest. I'm just so lucky. It's like the greatest thing ever.
You can
plus,
tell.
I only do half of them. So.
Yeah, really.
But
I don't know if I'd love it if I had to do all of them.
But I'll say this, because getting into the business, and going around, and I was heard a couple different times, and was asked to do it while I was hurt, it's a different breed here. And I would say your even bigger gift may be that, you were a utility guy. You watched a ton of games. And I think that was a gift I got too. Being a bench guy, you get to see things that most guys don't see, and you're watching it a different way, and that competitive edge comes out. But the one gift you have that blows me away is your timing. You have some of the best timing in the plays you pick, because the last couple of years I did it in 2020 and 2021 quite a bit, and it was a little overwhelming for me because you see so much, and it's like, what do you pick?
Yeah.
What do I choose to do? And then I really started watching you, and Walkie does a great job too, but I would say you're the timing expert. It's amazing watching you pick the right plays, and you bring it to life. He really does.
What's so funny is that why you say
it's
you say
true,
that because
though.
I've never thought about timing ever. And,
Probably not, but you pick the right plays.
Well, I think that is the other thing about it that I think I've just kind of stumbled upon or got lucky with is that you can't talk about every play,
right,
especially on radio. But on TV, I crave that play to talk about. A lot of the routine stuff I don't want to talk over, and I let the play-by-play guys do their job, but I crave that opportunity to talk about the game. And so when I find something worth talking about, I get passionate about it. And there are times where that play doesn't show up, and that's where I feel like it's forced and the timing is bad because I feel like that I'm kind of overcooking something that shouldn't be overcooked. And so and so I guess that would be the thing for me, because one, I don't want to be the guy that says the same thing over and over again, so I feel that I'm probably more patient, and I guess for some boring, because I won't talk. If there's nothing to talk about, he'll tell you I won't talk unless we talk about something on the side, make up some story, which I'm not good at. But if the game doesn't present itself something worthy of talking about, I don't talk. And so that's when you'll hear me.
Crickets.
Yeah, I get into crickets.
Yeah, but that is also, I think, something that good color analysts learn is when to be quiet. It seem like guys oftentimes feel the need just to talk. That doesn't do any good. You don't need that, especially on TV when the pictures are there.
Right.
I just wondered if you still enjoyed it as much as you did.
I love it.
How about the Leyland stories that and managers that you've played for? You've mentioned a couple of them, but Leyland, of course, stands out in your relationship with him. You've become a really good golfer. And
that's not true.
That is true.
I have heard different.
Yeah,
really good.
And Leyland's a really good golfer, so he tells me. I don't know. I've not had that opportunity, but I understand from him that he is really good. What's it like to be golfing buddies with the Hall of Famer?
What's interesting is I've always been intimidated by the man. I mean, he was my boss. In the same sense, reflecting back, he's done so much for me to the point where he was like my sponsor. But he also, I realized he trusted me, and he always found value in that utility knife, that guy that can, fill a role kind of in the background to where he trusts you to go to right field or left field or second or third or wherever. And so I knew my role, but I also never wanted to cross the boss. So I kept my mouth shut and just worked hard and made sure I was prepared for when I did get to play. And so I didn't have much of a relationship with him away from the field, ever. Marlins was a little different. The Marlins was cool because I got to spend a little more time with him, in his office after the games, kind of rehashing what
You're more a veteran then, too.
Yeah. So that was decent. So like in the last, since he moved on and I moved on, I just, if it wasn't at the ballpark, I didn't have much conversation. But again, bring it back, Tommy. So now
I got to hear this Tommy story.
Oh, we got to tell the Tommy story. That's
Tommy
true.
and Skip became very close. They both belonged to the same club. They spent a lot of time together. And so because of that relationship, and Tommy's one of my dear friends. Like he went to IU also. He's one of my best friends. It was his dad that did the Legion thing. it's weird how that all circled back. And so I get to play with Jim Leyland a few times a year, golf, and I get to run into him up at the club. And so I got to know him better this last couple of years and had normal conversations to where I didn't feel like the employee, and so, and it's so much easier talking to him, and I don't know why I was so scared of him for so many years, because he's we've seen it on the air. I mean, he's such a loving guy, and he's so emotional and passionate about baseball and so many different things. But him getting inducted in the Hall of Fame obviously is incredible and well deserved, and I made sure that I can get off to go up there and spend that time with him. But golfing aside, golfing's not that much fun other than the fact I get to rip on him, and be more comfortable without repercussion. And so, it's become more like a friendship than my boss type of thing. And so it's been really cool in that sense. And he can golf, man. He's 79 years old. And that dude doesn't miss a fairway ever. It's incredible.
Wow.
And so, that bonding the last couple of years has been really cool, really neat. And I have Tommy to thank for that, obviously. But the dude Jim Leyland was so intense a competitor, but so good at his craft. And you talked about being a utility guy and not playing every day, seeing the game from a different lens. I've always felt that I've had that different lens of dissecting a game, but I got to think along with him.
That's awesome.
And so for many, 8 years, I got to think along with him and got to question him at the end with the Marlins about why he was thinking what he was thinking. And that was invaluable as far as not that I had doubts of my beliefs or thoughts of how the game should be played or what you should do. A lot of guys have a lot of different opinions about a different play or a different change or pitching change or whatever. And none of them are wrong.
Right.
They all could be right. They're all different opinions, but they all could be right. They all could be wrong too. Right. But that's the great thing about baseball is that all these different scenarios in baseball, 5 different managers could be in the Hall of Fame and they could have made 5 different decisions on the same play. Some worked, some didn't. Maybe they all worked, none of them worked. But that's the great thing about baseball is just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you're wrong. But that's you sit there and that's what I think is missing in baseball. These conversations after a game with your teammates, among coaches and with the manager, it's like, hey, why do we do this? Why didn't we do this? Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think you should have done this, or I think, and so.
That's okay. It doesn't mean you're wrong.
That's the greatest thing about baseball, and that's the thing
about it.
I cherished most of all. I cherished most of all was sitting down after a game, having a beer, and talking about the game and arguing about the game.
Passionate argument.
I could be passionate saying, no, this is the way you do it. And I could be wrong, and you could be passionate, blah, 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 and what you said was right. It doesn't matter. That's how because you wake up the next day and you think, I see how that could work. Yeah, I could see, and that's what I think needs to be done in baseball among teammates, amongst coaches, and, it shouldn't be all science. I think there's still the human element, and, it isn't the probability 65%. I don't care about the probability.
Right.
You know what I mean? I care about, what's going on at that time. I mean, today might be different than tomorrow with that same decision, and so that to me is the beauty of baseball. Nobody's always right. Nobody's always wrong. And discussing baseball only makes you learn it and know it better.
Yeah, I loved when Tommy Sant, the late first base coach of the Pirates, would allow me back there, the back of the bus, you and Walkie and the 4 of us, because he would let me get involved in these true passionate arguments. Yeah. And this is a former big league player in his own right, Tommy Sant, a longtime coach, and as you said, and accepting that it's just a different opinion. But man, that should be our mission to get people talking again.
I think that is our mission.
Yeah.
I think that's why this has come about, and I think it's so cool that he brought up the human element. And Brownie, you've watched thousands of baseball games, so your perspective is different. Like, you're a utility guy. I was a backup catcher. Our perspective is so different depending on how we're seeing the game in that certain moment, but it all has weight, like you said. And I think what you said, it doesn't matter about the probability. And Jimmy Leyland is known for having that knack, that gut feeling, and that human element that most guys kind of wash away now.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit on that? Like, because I think that's the most mind-blowing thing, and what makes the best coaches. We just watched the World Series, and Bochy is known for that as well. And he stepped up in a way that was different. He managed the team. He didn't manage the numbers.
Yeah, I don't think Leland ever after a game was asked, or if he would, he'd dismiss it about, why did you do something? He would never say, well, this guy hit 300 against lefty. No, he'd have legit.
And he owned
not
it.
Not that that's not legitimate, but he'd have really good reasons behind it
I love
aside
that.
from just those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, again, the numbers will tell you a lot. And I wish I had those numbers as a player.
Amen.
Because I wish I knew what this guy threw with a 2-1 pitch.
Right.
80% of the time, because then I could look for that pitch. But there are times where a hitter is hot, and it doesn't matter who's pitching, lefty, righty. It doesn't matter if I'm hitting righty, lefty. I don't need to match up that way. And I think the really good managers recognize, okay, maybe he's a lifetime 180 hitter against lefties, but against this lefty, he's not going to face the wicked slider. Or I can go with a million examples that way, but there's also a feel, how's that pitcher throwing? How's that hitter hitting? But there's also a trust in guys. There's a trust in such where, why are we pinch hitting that guy when this guy does this or that guy does that? Well, that was the other thing that I thought was great about Jim Leyland and some other managers. It's like, okay, this is a no-brainer that you got to pinch hit this guy for this guy. Well, this guy should get a chance to be a hero once in a while too.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And what that does for your confidence?
Absolutely.
Oh.
That's another thing that you got to show your faith in that player every now and again. And the other thing about the arguing or not, I won't call it argument, the discussion, the debate, it should never be like personal. It shouldn't be like, you're wrong, I'm right. It should be like, well, this is why I would do that. And that's why, I think we should have done it differently, And so at the end of like the Marlin thing, I remember going into his office one time, like well after a game. And as soon as I walked into his office, it was actually a compliment for me. He's like, well, what are you going to second guess me about tonight? Because, well, that's my whole point. It's like, I want to learn, and I want to know why.
Yeah, that's how you learn.
Why didn't you do
Through
this?
the
Why
debate
didn't
discussion,
you do that?
that's how you learn.
And
he was learning too.
Right.
And that's the coolest part is like, you're not trying to one-up the guy. You're trying to come to the best outcome possible because you're going to be in that situation again. Or something similar too. And it gives you more, I guess, at your disposal to make a better decision.
And I've talked about this on the air, and I hate bringing it up again, but it was just one play, one game 30 years ago that, like, to me was kind of like epitomized my mind working. And so I guess I'm patting myself on the back here.
Yeah, you are.
But I was on third with nobody out, and the infield was like kind of halfway. And Rich Donnelly came up to me and said, see the ball through the infield. And there was a ground ball to the left of the second baseman that he caught, and I went home and scored. And like, to me, this is where I go as far as, like, not all managers have played or have had certain things, but, like, I scored, and as soon as I sat down, Jim Leyland came up to me and said, didn't he tell you to see it through? And I'm like, yeah, he told me to see it through. And he goes, well, why? Why'd you go? I'm like, well, there's no way. And again, this was my mind working all the times in batting practice, thinking mentally every ball hit what I would do on a situation. Well, there's no way a second baseman can go to his left, catch it, turn and throw home and throw me out.
Correct.
So that went through my mind. Even this was only I think my second year in the big leagues, third year in the big leagues. But I went through that play in my mind almost every day during batting practice. And so I felt that I taught him something. You know, that early in my career, like he asked me, he goes, well, why'd you go? And I'm like, well, there's no way he can throw me out going to his left like that. And he said, okay, and walked away. And I never talked to him about that ever again. And he probably don't remember it. But like to me, you know, that's part of baseball and part of learning. I mean, if I could, you know.
No matter how long guys
But I wasn't trying to tell you. I was just, that's what I experienced. It's just like, that's what you know, how you think about
it
winning
makes all the
games.
sense in the world, too. And maybe just something that nobody had thought or he hadn't thought about. So that's what's so cool
And
about
that's a competitive edge because you're looking for that win.
Looking a way to win games.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Little things.
Wow.
Finally, just want to go back to the Tommy story because it's hilarious.
Yeah, I got to hear about Tommy.
His buddy Tommy. Now, he's put down a little friendly bet with a buddy, right? Rob?
Yes.
I don't know what year this was. 20?
Yeah, over, under, and wins.
What year?
It might have been 20. It might have been the
Might have been
COVID year.
2020. Okay.
If it wasn't, it was 20 because there was nobody in the stands. I'm pretty sure it was 2020.
Okay. So what happened?
Oh, you want me to share it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're down to the last week of the season or whatever, and I forget what the over. Maybe it was 21. I don't remember, but I don't remember what the over under was in wins. But we're just sitting here again making stuff up because the game's kind of just going along or whatever, and it's like the ninth inning.
Well, now during the game, though, however, the Pirates are winning, and it seems like they're going to reach this number, whatever it was, of wins. Yeah. Not necessarily important to me or the audience because I'm unaware of this bet that his buddy Tommy has placed with another friend. But apparently I'm like glowing about the Pirates. And as you know, the superstitious fan, they crush me when I start to, crush.
Yeah.
So Wainer, between innings, he's got his phone out. And he's like kept texting back and forth with somebody. And finally, between innings, about the seventh inning, he shows me the text from Tommy. He goes, hey, Tommy says, Shut up. Back up. Because if they win this game, I win this bet. And this whole past, 10 days, 11 days, it seemed the Pirates are assured to win this number, but they had just kind of fallen apart.
Scuffling, yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like he's going to lose a bet.
Yeah.
But now, finally, so lo and behold, the other team ties it up. Yeah. And he shows me the text.
Yeah.
Blankety Brown did it again.
That's right.
Well, so now, who was it, Kevin Newman?
No, Jacob Stallings.
Jacob Stallings gets up.
Oh, the Cheetahs got up. Oh.
Cheetah gets up in the bottom of the 10th.
It was the bottom half at home. And, and again, Tommy's pins and needles. And we only have 1 or 2 games left. I forget what it was. And so as soon as Stallings made contact, I don't interrupt these guys, especially in that moment. Yeah. And it was such a bad year. There wasn't many moments. And as soon as the ball's off the bat, I yell, Tommy! And then he yells, Tommy!
So the call, and our boss at the Pirates is going you idiot, Brown and Wainer. We don't have enough call. We want to year-end highlight videos and stuff. We want to have good calls.
You drop it,
and that's the best moment of the season, and you screw it up because nobody knows who Tommy is. And you go back and you can watch it on YouTube, the Stallings home run. Stallings asked us later, who's Tommy, by the way? We're going, Tommy! So anyway.
It's the best inside joke ever.
Oh, isn't that great?
It's outstanding.
The stuff that goes
Tommy!
on there. Well, Rock, this is hold my cutter. So hold your cutter.
Well, now that we know he has pitching experience.
Hold your cutter. I'll hold the cigar cutter. You hold the baseball cutter. How would you hold your cutter, Rock?
I would guess right around there.
Pretty good.
Look at those big hands.
Yeah, you throw a good nasty cutter.
Nasty.
Let's do it again sometime, Rock.
Absolutely, 100%. I look forward to it.
You know who else would like this?
Fast.
A lot? This podcast? Tommy! Join us.
Wait a minute. Before we came, I went and saw Tommy. His warehouse is right down the street. And on my way here, he said, "What's the name of the podcast?" So good chance that Tommy's listening.
Hold my cutter. Join us on our next episode of Hold My Cutter.